Hi, Matt. I was looking forward to talking to you.
It was so clear to me that this is just about basically one person talking to another.
We all have the same excitements, passion, demons, procrastination.
I've been cursed and blessed with an overactive imagination.
Fucking A, man.
MattLees Gets Creative contains themes and subjects that may not be suitable for everyone listening. If you're easily offended, we suggest that you get your podcast on elsewhere.
Right here, right now, on MattLees Gets Creative.
Sit down and grab 3 or 4 images that I found and put them all into the one scene and do these massive A3 oil pastel pictures, and that's kind of where people started going, you're actually really good at that.
My guest this week is Nate Appleby, an outstanding visual artist and a fellow podcaster. You can check out his work on all social media at Appleby Creative. Why don't you commission something from him too? And you can check out his podcast, The Ozzy and the Palm Show, wherever you download your podcasts. And speaking of that, don't forget that you should subscribe to the show. You should tell your friends. You should leave us a 5-star review if you feel we so deserve it. Come on, leave us 5 stars. We are just about to wrap up season 2, so thank you very much for your support all season. This week with Nate, and a huge season finale coming next week. Can't wait for you all to hear it. And as always, thanks for listening. For you and for your creativity, where did it all start? Was it early for you? Was it always visual art and drawing? Is that always what it was for you?
Yeah, pretty much. Just anything to get me out of doing actual schoolwork. I just bloused about drawing and stuff, so that was basically it.
Yeah. And then, of course, suddenly you realize you have a talent for it, because it's something you must have been able to see right away. With humility aside, of course, but there must have been a point where you were like, oh, actually, this looks pretty good.
It was actually when I met my wife about 10 years ago.
Wow. So I was born in 81. So are we a similar age?
Yeah, I was born in 79, so
right.
2 years older than you. So
it took you quite a bit longer then to really feel that you had that in you, huh? And it was your wife that brought that to you.
Absolutely. She had a look at some of my work that I do just casually, that I was doing casually, and she said, you got to do something more than just piss fight about. You actually got to get all involved and get stuck into it properly. And then that's when, I went from there, and I'm where I am at the moment. And
for she's right, by the way, because I look at your work and I think, like, how isn't this guy making posters, or why isn't his work everywhere? And I've only known a couple of people like that with visual art, where I'm like, this should be your very well-paying job. And what I like most about your stuff is, though, you have that style, like many favorite artists, you have a unique style, right? So when I look at your work, I know that it's Appleby Creative. And I mean that as a compliment. It's that unique style that you make your own, but then you're also entering the pop culture and drawing all manner of things. So did you decide your own style early on then, 10 years ago, as it were? You knew you had a specific style, I think, maybe?
No, absolutely not. No, it was more the fact, I didn't know I knew I was good at drawing. I just didn't know what to draw, basically. So a guy called Patrick Brown, he's a Tasmanian like I used to be, but I've moved on since then. He did these amazing digital pieces on gaming, and I watched a few tutorials on him, and then that's what sort of got me into trying to emulate him. And then about halfway through that, I realised I can't do that, but I can do something similar that makes it work for me in my own way. So it took a while to find out what sort of style I like to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
I mean, it would all fit. It all fits in. We always talk these days about universes, like you got the MCU and the whatever else, the DCU, I suppose, if that's still a thing these days, unless they've given up by now. But all of your work, the characters would all fit in the same universe. they all seem to kind of like it's that there's a fancy word for this, but it's a Sunday morning, you know. They have that overall one kind of genre or one kind of look, if that makes sense, you know. So I've seen the ones you've done even of like groomsmen for a friend's wedding, for example, right? He's gonna hate that I only casually referred to him as a friend, but that'll just be fun for me and you. But hit those art you did of those guys would also fit in with the Batman I've seen you do and the Ninja Turtles I've seen you do. By the way, your Ninja Turtles are fucking awesome.
Thank you very
really
much.
like those. Even my wife, she was like, those are really cool. So it all fits into one style, and I really like that about it.
Yeah, I think what I was referring when I was talking to not copying. I don't want to say copy, but when I was learning how Patrick Brown did it, the way he coloured was very unique, and I think in my style, that's what I've covered. That's what I continued on. I still colour the same way, but I draw my characters different. So it's in that way, it's very unique compared to everybody else, especially the people that do, I suppose, what they call chibi art or whatever it is. I do kind of a cross between the two sometimes, and but I colour mine I try to do it more realistically than cartoony, but in a cartoon shell, if that makes sense.
It does. It's a perfect description of the style for sure, because like I referred to them as cartoon. I said it would all be in one cartoon series, or I could see your style as toys, action figures, right?
Yeah, correct.
Especially with these days with the vinyls that everyone's doing, those would look phenomenal in that style.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I'm going for at the moment. But I don't like to sort of narrow myself down to one sort of style. If you have a look at my Instagram, you'll find that I go from one thing to the next pretty quickly. And maybe that's why I have never sort of taken off the way that I would like to.
It's sort of the attention span thing, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit like that. But I see cool things and I think I can do that.
Right.
And I go, I want to do that my own way. And then I try it. And then, because I find the way that I work at the moment, I don't have a lot of free time to actually put into my work.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's very difficult that I don't want to waste time doing stuff that I've already done. Like if I have free time, I want to try something new and expand.
Right, yeah, yeah.
What I'm doing.
Yeah.
But hopefully it all comes back into the one main style that I do constantly. So I learn something new, but I bring a little bit back and improve on what I'm doing, and that's kind of how I work at the moment. So
yeah, I mean, I do the same with when we're working on songs. I'll have like a blues song mid in pieces on my software as we're just working on it, and then I'll hear like a funky little tune, and then I'll think, oh, let's do something a little more like that, and then you kind of have a few ongoing projects at once, right?
Yeah.
But you're learning from all of them. You're right, because then you can bring stuff that you learn in the new ones back to the other ones, and it's kind of a growing thing that way. I definitely wanted to ask, as you know, you mentioned 2 young kids now. That must be hard on a creative, both from a time thing, but maybe does it affect you in all other ways too? Like, because creativity is so much about inspiration, right? Like, I need to try this now, but obviously not all artists have that freedom, so that must be hard for you as well.
Yeah, so I've got a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old at the moment, and half the battle is not only do I look after the 1-year-old at home because I'm a stay-at-home dad at the moment, so my wife is lovely enough to go out and work, and I get to stay home and look after the kids. But so I'm doing that, and so I've got limited time to draw, but it's also the lack of sleep.
Oh yeah.
So some days you just get up and you can't be bothered, even when you got you got a day off. Like you go, right, you plan this day that you're going to get all this work done, and by the time that day comes around, you're so tired that you just go, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And then you start it, and it doesn't pop like the way you want it to. So yeah, kids, which you love to death, aren't the easiest things to work around because they don't care about your timetable. Would be the easiest way to put it.
Of course, yeah.
And yeah, it's very disheartening sometimes. But then I do also get a lot of inspiration from my daughter at the moment, who loves to draw. She draws on everything, like walls and everything, which she gets in trouble for, but she just loves to draw, and that sort of inspires me. And sometimes we do pictures together and stuff, and yeah, that sort of gets me motivated. But yeah it's really hard.
I imagine
the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Do you ever get tempted to draw on the wall and be like, look what your daughter did?
that might be a new one. If we didn't rent,
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. But, so yeah, it's interesting. Maybe she's picking. I know all kids love to draw, but maybe she's picking it up from you too because she sees you doing it and she wants to try it too, which is really really cool, isn't it?
It is really cool. A funny story about my daughter is I was drawing. I had this guy who sent me some comic book pages that he wanted coloured. So sometimes I just colour other people's works for them. So I was doing that, and then someone at school asked her what her parents did, and it was, "Oh, Mummy goes to the hospital to work, and Daddy's lazy at home just colouring in." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." I said, "Just lazy am I, Mac?" And she goes, "Yeah, well, that's what you do, Daddy. You just stay home and draw." And that was kind of, had to explain to the teacher what I actually did. And it was just, it was a bit embarrassing that my daughter just thinks I'm lazy and just colours in, which she can do herself. So
yeah, I mean, it's right, but in her defense, she's literally just describing what you're doing.
Correct.
So in a child's mind, she's like, "Why is Daddy getting upset? I'm telling the truth."
It's not the point.
Yeah, I know, definitely not. Definitely, absolutely, it's not the point. But in theory, you want kids to grow up to be honest and observant, and that's exactly what she's doing. But you're like, no, not about me. That's not how this works.
When I get jobs like that, they're the hard ones. When it's just colouring other people's work, because I get that a fair bit. Like, people send me over their prints that they want to sell at Comic Cons and stuff, and they ask me to colour it and stuff. And so I get that done, and I go, "Daddy's got to go do some work now, so you have to leave me alone." She goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" So I'm just colouring in on the digital tablet. And she goes, "I can do it, Daddy. Can I do it?" And it's non-stop saying, "No, this is actual work, and Daddy's got to do it." She goes, "No, I can do it. I can do it at school." And just explaining that I actually get paid to colour in, which is something really cool when you think about it. Like, I could have stopped school in grade 2 and I still would have been able to earn some money doing what I'm doing today.
Yeah. But it's going to be hard now when you try to explain to your kids that it's time to get a quote unquote real job, right? And then they're going to be like, "Well, why should if he doesn't have to, why should we have to? Let's just hope they don't go there." But knowing you and your pendency or your ability to wind people up, as it were, I think they're going to come for you on that.
Oh, absolutely. If my daughter's anything like me, she would definitely do it. Yeah. I've already got rules for her when she dates, and I'm sure she's going to do exactly what I tell her not to do. So it's just, look, if she wants to go into this field and try and make a living out of art, good luck to her, and I'll fully support her. But it's not the easiest thing. No.
I'm sure there's a little tiny part of you that hopes that she becomes really great at some sort of business career. So you're like, "Oh yeah, that's good for her,"
Yeah.
Secretly.
And looks after her parents and
of course,
becomes wealthy, and we can just sail around the world in a yacht or something. That'd be great. That's the perfect life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think those are reasonable expectations, which are really good to set on our children, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Just look after your parents like we did for ours.
That's right. Now, so when you look at, as far as inspiration goes, then who are your biggest people that you look at visually that really, really gets your fires going, as they say, if they do indeed say that?
I will, like the guy I mentioned before, Patrick Brown.
Mm-hmm.
His work has led me to where I am today. Like, I was lucky enough to actually meet him at a small comic book store down in Tasmania, and he was the nicest guy. Yeah, he chatted to me for ages about my work, and I bought some prints off him, and he just said, "Yeah, keep going at it. Look, everyone starts somewhere," and like I started a lot later than most. Like, I was in my 30s really before I started taking it semi-seriously. So, but yeah, his work is just dynamic. His colouring's amazing. It's work like I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And from someone that lived in the small island of Tasmania and seeing where he started and where he's now, he's working for Marvel and doing all their merchandising and stuff like that. It's just really impressive. So he would be the number one inspiration. And then someone like John, I always get his surname wrong, John Samavira, something like that. Mm-hmm. He does really quirky comics for have you heard of the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, he did a couple of issues of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, his art's really, really blocky, but it works really well. And he was kind of the inspirations behind the Turtles that you were talking about before that I did.
Yeah.
And yeah, just people like that. Like I get inspiration from a lot of people. Another weird one that I like, that I got a lot of influence from, was a guy called Vex on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
He does doodle art, and he's taken something that should just be something you do on a notepad when you're not doing anything, and he's turned it into an absolute art form.
Right.
And now he's got people just copying him left, right, and centre, but he's just absolutely incredible. Right. And yeah, so these are people that just inspire me all the time, and I can't help but think that's where I want to get, but I don't know how to get there. Would be the best way to. Yeah.
Is it ever for me? Sometimes I get like sensory overload almost, because I'll hear a song that I like and I'll think, well, how would I have EQ'd those guitars? How would I have done that vocal? I assume you may do the same kind of thing when you look at some art and think, well, how would I have drawn that? How would I have approached that specific cover or that specific panel? Does that ever get overwhelming in your like sensory overload type way, because it's so much of it, so maybe because it's even so good and you're looking at it like I would do and be like, whoa, there's a lot going on there.
Especially with some of the more complex pictures that I've seen from Patrick Brown, it does this amazing action scene in the front, but then his backgrounds are just as amazing as his foregrounds. And the thing that I get from him is that he writes down like how long the picture takes. So like this cover he did for a Spider-Man comic took him 21 hours to do. And I was looking at it and said, how could you only take 21 hours to do that? Like, it's incredible. And I find that the professionals that are constantly getting work, and deservedly so, they're quick-paced at what they do, so they can knock out a picture in 4 hours if they want to do a high-quality picture, whereas me, it would probably take me 10. I get there, but I just don't have that quick pace, and that's what I struggle with. I think if he can do it in 21 hours, and I wonder he can put out so much work of that quality in a week. Mm-hmm. And that's what I struggle with. And then, like you said, the overload, like how does he get everything so perfect? And yeah, it's just, I find that if you got to learn that he's spent 20 years learning how to do what he does. So if you're trying to learn off him, you're never going to be as good as him anytime. So what you've got to do is you've got to take the bits that you learn from other artists and make it into your own style. And that's, like I've said before, that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
That's right. Yeah, it's very tough. You have to sort of be able to set yourself realistic limits and things.
Yeah, there's no point trying to be, say, a Jim Lee.
Right, exactly.
When there's only one Jim Lee, so...
Yeah, like similar to like a new guitar player listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan and being like, I want to be like him. Well, you know, there's a long way to go for that, you know, and there's only one Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of thing. So you have to sort of be a dreamer and push for what you want, but you also have to be a little bit more realistic, especially when you're still building things up. So because you only worked in like got serious, I should say, within the last 10 years, was it always digital for you? Like, was it always tablets, or did it start on paper?
It started with A3 sheets of paper and oil pastels, believe it or not.
Right. Okay.
So I used to love the X-Men, and still do. Might not be the current movies, but X-Men have always been my favourite, like comic or cartoon.
The animated series, yeah, of course.
Yeah, 91, absolutely. Yeah, 91 or 93?
92. Yeah. 90.
There you go.
Who knows?
I might miss the dates.
They did a comic series, didn't they? They did a comic book series too, in the same art style. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and no, you're right. It was some of my favourite stuff. So I used to sit down and grab 3 or 4 images that I found and put them all into the one scene and do these massive A3 oil pastel pictures, and that's kind of where people started going, "You're actually really good at that." And I said, "Yeah, but it's like a copy of other people's work." And they go, "Yeah, but you're doing what we can't do. Why don't you try and do something of your own? And then that's when I kind of said, oh, okay. And that's when I came across the Patrick Brown and his art, and that was all digital. And I said to my then girlfriend, said, look, I think if I give this a go, I can do it. And she said, absolutely. Like, don't hold back. Like, you, at the moment, we've got no kids. And I was working nights at the pub, so I had all day free. And she goes, yeah, like, commit to it and just do it. And so I went out and bought your basic digital tablet and set up with the laptop and did my first couple of digital pictures. And they were atrocious. But I learnt about layers on Photoshop and different brushes that you can use. So I learnt all those in those horrendous first pieces. And even then I loved them. But then looking back on them, they were terrible. But it was that stage then that I said I really like doing digital because you can fix your mistakes easy, and then digital just sort of took over. Yeah. But my main thing is I never just do digital. So I'd always sketch it out on paper first, scan it, and then do digital on top of that. So that's kind of my work process.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, so you get that sort of visceral, real beginning, and then you kind of touch it up digitally. Again, similar to creating a song digitally, say on like GarageBand or something, right? Because I'll lay down real guitars and record those and then add other digital instruments around it. So it's a similar way. It's, mine's audio, yours is visual. And it's
amazing. It's amazing how close other art forms are to the process of creating it.
Yeah.
I find.
Yeah. Because art and music and art literally would be so completely different from each other. But then your process and my process are also so incredibly similar, especially like the actual literal work we'd be doing, right? It's so very similar that you're just kind of there in this digital environment, manipulating what you started with, hoping to come up with something really cool at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's that never being happy with your work is what I find as well. Do you find that with yours?
All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Especially for me, vocals. I always, my least favorite part of any song I've ever released ever is always the vocals. And I don't say that to fish for people to be like, no, they sound good. Hand on heart. That's not why I say it. I've always genuinely hated my own vocals. Just one of those things. But yeah, I would keep doing it forever. My one producer used to have to cut me off and be like, I'm not recording the vocals again, man. I'm not doing it again.
They're good enough.
We have 11 takes of you singing the same thing. I don't need this. And I'd be like, okay, fine. Then I'd let them pick because I won't be able to choose. So I imagine it's similar for you then.
Very similar. I remember I spent ages doing this one piece. It was Hulk getting all angry and smashing a cop car, or about to smash a cop car. And I spent ages on this piece. I loved it. So I put it up on this site, had a lot of positive comments about it. And then I had this one arsehole that said, it looks like Hulk's taking a shit. And that's the one that still hurt. I was so upset. It still hurts me to this day. That arsehole. Doesn't matter how many likes you get. It's that one arsehole that says, it looks like Hulk's taking a big dump. And then, it just hurts so much. And I still remember that.
Yeah, it does. And the similar for me would be you put up a song, do all that work onto it, hundreds of hours or whatever it is, and then someone will be like, the bass is a little loud in the third bar, don't you think?
And it's like, what?
And you're like, mother, what? Why don't you do it? Especially when it's a finished product. It's one thing if it's in the works, and you're kind of just still working on it. But when it's already done and just one dude just drops in with a comment like that, you're right, it hurts. And you're like, well, he's ruined the song for me now, or he's ruined the piece for me now, right?
Yeah, it's hard. Those one negative comment, or they hurt the most.
Yeah.
It could be thousands of
yeah. It's that drug of like the comments, and the positive reaction is that little hit of morphine or whatever it is, right? That we're all chasing, every creative person in some way, and then it's the complete opposite of that though when you get the negative stuff, and it's or when you don't. For example, you put yourself in for a gig or a job and you don't get it, and you get that moment of like, oh, I thought I was getting pretty good at this, but I guess I'm not. It doesn't mean that, but you'll tell yourself that, right? I do anyway, for at least a few moments, right?
Oh, yeah. I think after that picture, I didn't draw for about 2 months. That's how much it hurt.
Yeah.
But you just got to go stuff it. This is what I liked. And then that's kind of when I was trying to draw like Patrick Brown. Sorry for mentioning him so much, but big inspiration of mine.
I'll write to him and tell him to PayPal me a couple of bucks.
Oh, look, if he doesn't get a few more followers from this, I'll be surprised. But yeah, and then I was saying, oh, bugger this. And then I started watching this other YouTube artist called Will Terrell. He does character drawings, like people sketching.
Right.
So he just used to go out and sketch people in public. And I thought, oh, yeah, look, I'll try something different. So I went out and bought all these Copic markers and toned paper to do all the sketches on. I just went out and started drawing random people. And I thought, this is just so much more relaxing. No one else has to see these. And it's just fun, and it gets me drawing more and random people, random shapes that you're not normally drawing. And I thought, yeah, this is good fun. And then my wife goes, these are actually good too. My wife's my biggest supporter. And I said, oh, yeah. And she goes, no, start up a page on Facebook and put them up there, and I guarantee you people will like them. I was going, you really? And I said, she goes, yeah, definitely. Like, and what do you have to lose? Like, no one has to know it's you. Just make it some random name of the page, and no one else ever have to know they're yours. So
we'll head right back to our conversation. I know. We all hate ads on our podcasts, but indulge me, if you will, just for a moment. Here at MLGC, we've started a patron program, but it's not like many of the other programs that you hear about, and that's for one special reason. And that reason is, it's all for a great cause. See, during Season 1, we donated half of all our patron donations to the Velindre Cancer Centre right here in South Wales. It's a fantastic hospital run by amazing people that are saving lives every day, including my own. For Season 2, we wanted to step things up, so I'm glad to let you know that from here on out, we're donating 100%. That's each and every penny we receive through our kind supporters to the Velindre Cancer Centre. Sure, we could use the funds towards the cost of running a show, but we wanted to do more with your kind donations, so we're paying it forward. If you'd like to help out, you can join the Creative Club, and it's $5 a month. You'll get access to exclusive episodes, a chance to submit questions in advance for upcoming guests, and you'll have the knowledge that you're helping me help others. I know everyone can't afford to donate to every cause, no matter how worthy they are. But if you are looking to spread some love, like our dear friend and supporter, the patron saint of podcasters, Librarian Kate, then we'd love to have you be a part of it. Check it out at patron.podbean.com/MattLees Gets Creative. That's patron.podbean.com/MattLees Gets Creative. Join the Creative Club and help us battle cancer one podcast at a time. I just came up with that last part on the fly. That's pretty good.
And what do you have to lose? Like, no one has to know it's you. Just make it some random name of the page, and no one else ever have to know they're yours. So, yeah. And I said, all right, I'll do that then. So I named it after the plaza that I used to go to, called Werribee Plaza in Melbourne. And so it was the people of Werribee Plaza, sort of a play on Humans of New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just used to go there for a couple of hours a day and just sketch random people and then post them up, and then some crazy lady found me one day doing them. She goes, oh, what are you doing that for? And I said, I just got this Facebook page that I put them up there. And she goes, oh, they're so good. And then she told a few people, and they told a few people, and it blew up. And then from 1 week I had about 20 followers liking the page, to the next week I had 1,600.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, well, this is good. And the problem I didn't know then, I didn't know that was a good thing. Like, I didn't know that was a good amount of people to like a page.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't build on that. I just sort of didn't know what to do with it. And that's one of my biggest problems that I did, was I could have built on that and made it probably something way bigger than what it became. But instead I just sort of just said, oh, look, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to close it down. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made, because I had plenty of work coming in through that page. But yeah, so...
But it's hard, man, because we make those mistakes because that kind of technology and the ability and how much of a commodity 1,600 followers is, because we're the similar age, when that's happening, it's still kind of new to us. So we sort of didn't understand it just yet, right? It was a new technology. So you get that moment of like, shit, I really should have done better with that. But we didn't know at the time, right? So
correct. It's just you look back on it and go, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, and then you realise, but you didn't. So just stop worrying about it and just move on.
Exactly. Next time you'll know better, you know? But yeah, especially with this modern era of like commissioning artists, especially like people love getting artists to like draw them and their friends and their family and their buddies, you know? So I imagine there is a huge market for that kind of stuff. And especially for your kind of work, you know, I've seen some of them on your Instagram, but I hope anyway, that's a good set of work for you, a good income for you. It should be.
It usually is. And around Christmas and like people get me to them for birthdays and things like that. But what I found is when I was just out drawing them randomly and they never knew who they were, I didn't have to get everything perfect. Mm-hmm. So I was very relaxed about it. But then when people came up to me and said, "Oh, can you draw my family in this pose?" and I thought, "Oh, now they want it to look exactly like them."
Yeah,
which I did, and I did more than fine, but it's just that added pressure that I found. And like when I did my friend's wedding, I loved doing it, and I loved the result. Like everyone was really happy with it, but the amount of pressure that I felt, not so much of drawing the groomsman, but him himself, like. He's like a really good friend, and I knew what he looked like, and the pressure of actually drawing him almost got to me a bit that I'd put him off way till last, and I didn't want to do it because I didn't want it to look terrible. And that's sort of where I get at the moment, like because they're paying you to do this picture, and they pay you pretty well to do it. Yeah. And then if it doesn't look like them, they're going to be shitty, and that sort of gets to me, and that's probably when my wife just steps in and goes, "They've seen your work, they know what you do. Just do it, and if they're not happy with it, that's their problem."
Yeah, you know.
And I go, "Yeah, it's easy for you though, honey."
Well, you know, it's really beautiful that you say that because my wife is also my biggest supporter, and her and I have had almost the exact same conversations when I've been commissioned to make music, right? And I'm like, "Oh, it sounds shitty. Like I don't know if this is what they want. I don't know if this is what they want it to sound like." And she's done the same of like, they hired you to do it, so do what you do. If they don't like it, then that's their problem, right? And it's so true, but it's also very hard, like you said jokingly there and lovingly, easy for you to say, but it is that ultimate support we need, right? But
oh, absolutely.
And they're both absolutely right. Like they come to you to do a certain thing and they come to me to do a certain thing. If they then come back and go, "I don't like it," then it's kind of like, okay, well, politely ask someone else, I guess. I don't know. Like, and I don't mean that I will go back into it and reattempt things. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, they hire somebody to do a job a certain way, and that's why, you know, if I commission an artist, for example, when they come to me with questions, it's more for me to be. I prefer to be like, "Hey, we hired you, man. Like, you know, you do what you do. You know." I now realize for artists, it's sometimes easier for us to give you guys some guidelines, a little bit, right? A little bit of a head up. But I kind of like to just get out of the artist's way and let them do what I ask them to do.
Yeah, I like to work. They give me rough guidelines on what they want to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'll go back and I'll do a rough sketch, and then I'll show them the rough sketch and says, "If you're not happy with how this is looking, this is the time to tell me now." And I'll fix everything up before I take it to the next step, which is when I start doing it digitally, and then it gets really hard to change. I find 9 times out of 10 with difficult clients that I get to the rough sketch. I said, "If you want anything changed, let me know now." And I go, "Yeah, no, everything's looking great. Yeah, please go ahead with that." So I step forward, show them the final piece, and then they go, "Oh, actually, can you change that? Can you change that?" And it's like, "Oh, fuck's sake, I told you before."
Yeah, multiple times, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, but we didn't know it was going to look like that." So it's like, all right, I'll do my best to change it. And then it just takes a lot longer for the process to be finalised then, and it's rather annoying. Like clients in general, apart from if you're planning to hire me off this interview, are really annoying because they think they know what they want. But then they don't really, which is 9 times out of 10 that's the case.
Yeah, and I think especially with creativity, ignorance is bliss from the customer standpoint. So they don't realize how much work is involved in like, "Hey man, I love the character you drew, but he's got his left hand on his hip. Could he just have his right hand on his hip instead?" You know? And of course, for an artist, you're like, do you know how much work that is? Like I've had clients where I'm at the vocal stages of something, and they'll go, "Oh, there's a piano in the one section. Could that be like an organ instead?" Now, 6 weeks ago, that's easy. No problem. I can literally just switch it. Fine. But now that we're at the mixing stages, I have to go back into the original and not start over, but almost start over, right? And it's similar for you.
Absolutely. It's just they think just looking at it, it's simple to change a few things.
Yeah.
But it's really not.
No.
And it's just, especially when you've it's highly rendered and shaded and everything like that. It's a lot of work to go back and change it. But yeah, I think because about 5 years ago I did a graphics design course. I got my diploma in graphic design because I thought that would help me along with the business side of my art and creativity. The one thing they'd never told me in that course is how much hard work it is to do all the other stuff involving your art. Like, it's fine just to find a client and draw something and he likes it. It's all the sending them invoices and putting tax away and all this, and it's just an incredibly thing. And I'm good with drawing and doing what my clients want me to do when I have them. It's the other stuff that I really, really suck at.
Yeah. And so do I, and so do many of the creatives I talk to. So I think that's another one of those running themes is we only have the one side of the brain, it seems, as it were, right?
Correct.
Because I'm the same. I can't handle the other side of even the music stuff, you know, the remembering gigs and booking dates and what time is sound check at this place and what time. No, I can't handle that part of it. So I'd rather mostly just not do it because I don't want to deal with all the other stuff, you know?
You find like a few of the YouTubers that I watch, a guy called Draw with Jazza. He does an art channel and he's really quite good at what he does. But even he says if it wasn't for his wife doing all the admin and the booking of this and doing all the behind the scenes work, his channel just would have gone nowhere. And now he's got like 3 million subscribers. So yeah, it's a weird thing that like everyone thinks, oh, he draws pictures and gets paid for it. That's so easy. But yeah, that's the easy part. It's the rest of it that really is hard.
Oh yeah. I mean, even going from a point of like putting a value on yourself, right? When somebody says to you, hey, how much for this? And you're like, well, I don't like, how do you, because you think of a number that has to be reasonable to the customer, but you look at it with a life of work and inspiration and you go, it's worth way more than that. Right. But
yeah.
How do you put a price on it? I know that's one of those cheesy things when you're like, oh, how do you put a price on something you love? But how do you put a price on a piece of you when you're giving it away, right? It's so difficult.
I found it really difficult to put a price on my time. And that was until I had kids. And then I found it a lot easier to put a price on my time because I know I don't want to be doing something for, say, 7 hours and only charging someone for like, say, 4 hours of work or the equivalent of, because that's 3 hours that I was actually spending with my kids.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm doing 3 hours of unpaid work, basically. So you're just doing this extra 3 hours of work for nothing. So since I've had kids, I'm more of a, look, it's going to take me 4 hours to do this and I charge blah, 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 roughly per hour. So that's what I'm charging. If you're not happy with that, I'm happy not doing it.
Exactly.
And I become a bit more ruthless when it comes to like charging the amount of money. And then I find the best thing to do now, if anyone's out there, make sure you get a deposit up front.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing worse than, I'll pay it when it's all done. And then you finish the work and then you go, oh, you got that money now. And they go, oh, no, pay next week and it's next month, or you just don't hear from them ever again. So my one tip for anyone that's trying to get into like freelance artist or whatever, deposit up front is always the way to go.
Yeah, because again, creative minds like ours, we don't think about the money side, right? But unfortunately, you have to, if that's what you want to do and make money from it, you have to think of the money side. And we don't like doing that because it takes away from the creative fun part. But unfortunately, you have to be like that. So, but I had to learn that too by having venues that would rip us off. And because I didn't pre-agree an amount or anything like that, or because I didn't think about that kind of stuff. And until I was in the band I was in most recently before I left Canada, and those guys were like, well, listen, we do not play for less than X. So unless the gig pays XYZ, then we're not coming. And they weren't doing that to be mean to me, but they were trying to show me that, like, if we're going to be worth anything, we have to be worth whatever we pick. And I remember Jay Walsh, my guitar player, telling me, if we tell a bar that we'll play for a round of beers and $20 each, then that's all we're worth, right? If we tell them that we want $500 a night, then that's what we're worth. We may not get as many gigs, but when they do pay it, it'll start happening, and then that's what our value is. So it's similar, I think, with art. You have to set your value and work towards that's what you're going to work for. And if at the beginning people say too much, then you say, fine, like you said, I'm happy to not do it, but this is what I've decided it's worth for me to get involved and do it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And since I look after my 1-year-old all the time, it's so easy for me to say I'm happy with doing just that. Like, I'm happy to spend time with my kid.
Exactly.
So it makes it a lot easier. But before kids, it was like, I'd do some jobs that were like, I'd charge for, like, say, the equivalent of like 4 hours work, but I'd spend sometimes nearly 10 hours doing it just because I was happy to get the work. And
yeah.
I had all that free time before I went to my night job and things like that. So that was fine. But I just, it's a bit like you were saying, like, you love doing it, but if you want to make money from it, you got to treat it more like a business than a hobby, so to speak.
I think the main lesson from that is you have to be willing to say no. And that's the hardest part I had to learn, was saying no. Because I used to be, anything that came in, I'd be like, yep, I'll do it. We'll figure out the money part later, or we'll figure out the deal later. But now I'm more like, I don't know how much I want to do of that. So I'll pick and choose what I want to do. Because then I'll enjoy it more too, creatively, right? Because
it's still the worst part of your day, though, isn't it? Saying this is how much I want for what I'm going to do.
I hate it. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like typing the email. I don't like sending the message. It makes me legit uncomfortable. And then
before you go on, how awkward is it when you send your price over for the job and then it takes them a while to reply back? You're just thinking, they obviously think it's way too much. It's way too much.
And you see the little dots because they're typing, and you're just glancing at it going, oh no.
Yeah, it's incredibly awkward and something that I hate doing. And but it's something that has to be done. And if they're not happy with paying that much, that means they're not happy with, like, your time. So
exactly, yeah. I can remember one specific occasion we had a guy wanted to hire us to play at some private gig on a farm on a nice little riverside there. It was really gorgeous, but he owned a couple of gyms, so obviously we knew he had some money. And I went to the band and I said, this guy wants us to play a gig for him, a private gig. And they were like, all right, well, we want X. And I of course, worst part of it was that conversation, right? So I'll never forget, the band made me call him on speakerphone. Just me. They didn't talk to him, but they made me do it in front of them and call him and be like, hey, so we're willing to do the gig, man, but we're going to need 6. And they're all just looking at me like, fucking say it, Lees. And I was like, we're going to need $600, man. And I remember he went, sounds great. And they all were just looking at me, and I was like, I should have said 900. But, to this day, one of the best gigs we ever did and one of the best paydays, and we got to hang out on a nice plot of land and everything. But I just remember they made me do that. And I feel like you don't have that as an artist, other than maybe from your wife. But in a band, you kind of have the other guys to kind of guide you a little bit. Whereas in art like this, you're on your own kind of thing.
My wife is very much like, as soon as I get a client that I'm doing something for, she's like, so how much are you charging? And I say, blah, blah. And then the next question, how long is it going to take you? And she goes, if they don't line up, she's not happy. So I definitely make sure. But the one thing, like you were saying then on the phone, like, I should have charged 900. When I was saying before, when they take ages to get back to you, worrying about, have I overcharged?
Yeah.
But when they get back to you straight away, go, okay, that sounds good. You go, shit. Yeah. Did I under?
Yeah.
I could have got more.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird thing, and I'm not too sure if you thought this is where the conversation was going to go today, but about paying money and everything. But it's one of the aspects of freelance work that you don't hear much about. So
it definitely is. I mean, like I say, it's a necessary evil. Unfortunately, it's the elephant in every room. Everybody I've talked to tries to or does make a living from it, and unfortunately, sometimes you have to put a value on things, right?
Correct.
I recently spoke to, this is just braggadocious, but I spoke to one of the guys from the original Mighty Ducks the other day.
That would have been cool.
Honestly, I had to try so hard not to be a fanboy because I love those movies so much. Luckily, though, for me, in our email conversations, it was the guy who played Averman. So Matt Doherty's his name. And Averman was the cheeky guy with the curly hair and the glasses, always making smart remarks. in our first email back, he said something about like, I'm happy to do the show as long as it's more than just like nostalgia, because there's a lot more to me than that. And that kind of set me on the right path. I had no intention of just talking about Mighty Ducks the whole time, but I could have easily fallen into that trap. So I was glad that he gave me that guideline so that I didn't want to go do that to him. But anyway, my point was going to be that he is coming over to the UK for different conventions and things. And I imagine for him, charging for autographs and stuff won't be his favorite part, but it's something that unfortunately he has to do as well. Something I would find really hard too if I was like in some capacity invited to cons and stuff. Charging people like $20 to take a picture would be so hard for me.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure if he goes to enough cons, he surely would have a manager of some sort to sort all that out. So I think that maybe that might be a bit easier for someone like that. But yeah, it's just when money is talked about, it's always awkward.
Always makes you, I don't know. It shouldn't be. I mean, it's the thing that makes the world go around, right? But
exactly.
Every time talking about the money part is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get to go to my kids. I'm working this week, kids. I get to feed you. So
yeah, I'm going to be coloring in, and that means you get to eat next week.
Yeah. Yep. You might get nappies as well, kid. So yeah, we're all working out. So yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe not where we thought the conversation would go, but it is important for artists and creative types or any sort of freelance of any type, not just creativity. I'm sure that's the most uncomfortable. I had a buddy who used to do house, construction. He was a real man, unlike you and I. He was one of those real men that you hear of. Drove a truck. His hands were all calloused and beat up. You know what I mean? And he used to do legit man work for people, build fences or put driveways down or whatever it was. And even for him, asking for the money was always the most uncomfortable part for him. So it's one of those strange things, One
of the worst things I've ever seen is artists that I kind of know. He's fucking terrible. But he's really good at that part of, he's very good at talking to people into things and he gets paid really well for really average work.
Yeah.
But that's his skill set, so good on him. But yeah, just like you wish you could talk like that and do the work that you do, and you'd be way better off. But yeah.
I knew a lot of musicians that would show up on all these different shows, and people would be like, "How does these people get on every single gig?" I don't understand. It's because they're good at the business part, right? And
yeah, exactly.
That's the toughest part. Well, as we wind down, is there anything that you wanted to chat about that we haven't broached as far as your creativity goes and your inspirations or anything like that? Was there anywhere you wanted to go that we didn't go, or are you?
I'm happy to talk a bit about. I've started doing like a bit of animation stuff.
Yeah,
as well.
I did want to ask you about that actually, because that must be a whole different world. Again, even though it's a similar world.
It's a lot. It's fun at the moment, which is the way I put it. Like, I kind of like going through, getting my 1 month free subscription to Skillshare with my 15th email address or whatever. Yeah. And just going through and learning new skills. And I came across this animation one for an Adobe software called Animate.
Yeah.
I thought, that looks pretty cool. And it looks reasonably simple to have someone on screen following your lips and talking. So I said, look, I'll give it a go and I'll sync it up with my friend that we did the podcast with.
We're gonna hurt his feelings so much.
And yeah, and so I got stuck into that, and everything that you think looks simple never is. So it took a lot longer than I hoped for, but the results are good fun, and they kind of work pretty well. And it's just something different, and it takes your mind off anything else that's going on. Like, you sit down for a couple of hours, animate this 1 5-minute scene of you talking to a camera, and it's fun. So that's something new that I've started doing, and it's interesting. And that, and I used to make YouTube videos of my art as well. So yeah, I'd like to give everything a go, and I think maybe if I concentrated on one thing, I'd probably do better at that one thing. But I'm never one just to sit down and say, I've nailed this, I'm going to keep on going. I'm all like, let's give everything a go and see what happens.
Yeah, because the animation does look awesome. It's really cool. And again, you said it like, and because you look at that from me, from somebody who knows nothing about animation, kind of like when people listen to a song and they assume it might be kind of easy. You look at that and I think, well, it's a character looking at the camera, speaking to me. How hard can that be to animate? But I imagine it's pretty fucking difficult.
It is difficult. This program makes it a lot easier than it would if you had to do frame by frame animation. So just to quickly go over it, you set up a digital puppet basically. So you have 20 different mouths with 20 different sounds that the English speaking language has apparently,
right? And
then you have different layers for the eyes and the eyebrows, and then you sync it up. Your computer maps your face, and then as you're speaking, your character speaks and moves his eyes and eyebrows and things like that. So once you get your puppet set up properly, the rest is fairly easy. But the problem is when you do two characters in the scene, you have to do different audio for both and different characters separately.
Right.
And then, so it's as complicated as you want to make it. Mm-hmm. And knowing me, I like to make things complicated. So I learnt that program, and then I had to edit the two clips together in Adobe Premium. And then so I had to learn that as well. So in the space of a week, I learnt how to do the animation and edit pretty poorly in Adobe Premium. So I like to learn new things and keep myself busy, and that's what motivates me to do other things. So
yeah, and with the completely different all the different characters you've done from all different genres, you could really put together quite a little cartoon series for yourself, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Look, again, time is,
of course, yeah.
It's just the thing. My main goal I'd love to do is have a YouTube channel that was successful. Yeah. Just making drawings or animations like I've done. But the time you need to put into something like that it's basically more than full time. And I just don't have the time to do that, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
I wish I could say to my partner, this is definitely going to work. If I put in 40 hours a week into this project, in half a year, I'm going to be making such and such money. But you never know that with like things like YouTube or anything like that. So it's that I admire people greatly that have the guts to take that leap and say, yep, I'm going for it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just put all my chips on the table in it and go for it. And good for them. But like, it's all right. But I have a family that need me to look after them. Mm-hmm. And my wife is already working 40 hours a week to support everything that we do.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to say, when you get home, I'm going to go off to my man cave and I'm just going to work on this and you won't see me again, because then we just have no life together. So I admire people that can do it and just step off the cliff and just go for it. But for me, there's more to life than work, if that makes sense.
Of course it does, man. I mean, and I admire the amount of work you are able to get done, because we do not have two children. And I struggle to find time to record podcasts or edit podcasts sometimes, not only due to a lack of time, but like you said, there's other things in life. You want to spend time with my wife or whatever, and rather than just be sitting in the studio when she gets home from work, So it's a similar thing. You have to find that fine balance. So I do hope that you magically find some more time for yourself, because I love seeing the work and I really do like it. I don't tell you that just because we're podcast buddies on that joke of a network. I say that because I do genuinely like your work. So
thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, my friend that I do the podcast with, who I might mention his name towards the end of the show, he's been married for less than a year. And so he's got a life that he's experiencing with his new wife, and he's got a lot going on. He's started a new job, and then I'm over at the other side of the world in Australia, and I've got my life. And so at the moment we're finding it really hard to connect to record.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for people that like our show that we haven't done one in 3 weeks. But what are you going to do? Like, am I going to say to him, or am I going to say to my family, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything with you guys for a couple of hours because I'm going to stay home and record a podcast with my friend in England? And is he going to go to his new wife, no, I'm not going to go out and have dinner with you tonight because I'm going to stay home and record a podcast with someone in Australia. Like, you got to, like, as much as we love doing it, you got to, like, there's more to life.
Yeah.
And you got to experience that. Like my wife keeps on saying, you don't know tomorrow you might get hit by a bus.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to give up time with your kids or your wife to do something that you're not getting paid for, but you love doing anyway? It's a weird thing because you love doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just hard to balance it at the moment. And
Yeah.
I think with that time difference at the moment, it's crazy. It works way better when I'm on daylight saving times and you guys aren't.
Such a weird thing, isn't it? Time difference.
It does your head in. At one stage, we had my brother who lives in Queensland on the podcast as well. So there's 3 different time zones, and trying to organise it all was just a headache. And then he stopped talking to me, so that sorted that problem out. So
okay, well, as podcasts do seem to break up sometimes. Podcasts seem to bring some drama sometimes, you know.
They always do. There's no one. Yeah, like me and Russ. Oh, I said his name. Me and Russ like to stir the pot a little bit in the podcasting world. Like, we don't take it too seriously, so it's good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, when you're in this interim time, if you and I find time, I'm happy to sit down and record with you. If you know, if there's a time that lines up, surely it would line up for us too. But you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
We could do a couple of mini-sodes of an in-between thing before we build back in and take jabs at our podcast network buddies.
It sounds good, actually. Like, I miss doing it because we haven't done it in 3 weeks. But yeah, it's actually since you were on the show last.
Yeah, I killed it. I'm a killer of podcasts, man.
You are. You're like that guy that was on Felicity.
I never saw it, but I'll take it because I tend to kill him off, it seems.
They call him the TV killer. Like, it just, every show he appears on,
right.
They have one's last season and they get taken off the air.
Well, I hope that's
Scott
not what
Foley,
happened.
I think his name might be.
Yeah, I hope that's not what happened because I really like the show, but you know, you never know.
We'll be back.
Good. How do people get in? How do people find your work? Take a look at it and follow you and follow what you're up to.
Well, on Instagram, I'm appleby.creative, very original, and I post most of my work on there. You can find me on Twitter, which is apples_23, big Michael Jordan fan. And you can find me on Facebook at Appleby Creative. I put a fair bit of work up there and little videos, YouTube videos as well.
Yeah.
You can find me on YouTube under Appleby Illustrations, but I haven't posted anything on there for quite some time. But they are quite good videos, if I do say so myself.
So you're out there. People can reach out to you because they may catch that lightning in a bottle where you're available to maybe take on a commission or so here and there. You never know, right? It's worth reaching out because you never know.
Look, if you're willing to pay me, I'll find the time.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a Lego addiction at the moment, so I need to pay for some of that. So
Lego's expensive.
Oh, ridiculous, but so much fun.
My wife and I were debating between the Lego Disney Castle and the Lego Ghostbusters Firehouse. We chose the Lego Castle for like £300, of course. And now the Ghostbusters Firehouse is out of print, if that's what it is in Lego terms.
They're just incredibly expensive, and they're doing that thing now that they're only doing limited runs of things.
That's right, yeah.
So, yeah, cheeky bastards. I love the Lego. I don't buy it as much as I used to, but it's something that I can just sit down in my own time and just plug away at and do it, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And then I have my daughter come over and try and help me and find the pieces for me and make the process twice as long. So it's good fun, Lego.
The name of this episode could be Kids, man.
Kids and asking for money.
Oh dear. Well, dude, I really appreciate it. It's strange that it's is it like the end of the night there now for you?
It's just gone 9 p.m, so it's not too late.
9 p.m. So it's not even like an even time difference. What is going on? It's so weird.
No, but this has been fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Next time on the season finale of MattLees Gets Creative.
that's the gift, I think, to the ease at which we can do things.
Yeah.
But it demands, again, it goes back to that thing, man. Like I was, like, talk about the Ducks. Like, to me, the thing I think most of, because that was my formative years. Like, I learned during hockey camp, man.
Yeah.
I learned about getting up when you fell down.
That's next time on the final episode of Season 2 of MattLees Gets Creative. A true dream come true for me. This episode, I never would have thought I'd have gotten to speak to this guest. There's a few times during this show, during both seasons, that I've had to kind of tone down the fanboy in myself. This was definitely one of them. I can't wait for you to hear it and for us to wind down the season. And don't forget to follow us on social media at ML Gets Creative for Twitter and for Instagram. And make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave a review, tell your friends, and thanks for listening.